So here we've got the 2005 Subaru Impreza, and it's jacked up on the other side, so there's a bit more clearance in the front there right now just because it's jacked up. The rear is showing about what it's normally got, and I just want a little bit more clearance, so I've ordered a 2-inch lift kit, and I'm going to show you the steps of installing it. So let's start with the front here. First, you're going to need to remove the wheel. Then you're going to need to remove the 2 bolts in the top here. This one's just hanging out here. It should be 3/4 inch or whatever that converts to in millimeters. Then you've got a 12 millimeter bolt here and another one right here. This is for your ABS mount to the McPherson strut, and this is for your brake fluid, your brake line. So that would cover the whole bottom there. Now the bottom is ready to let go from the knuckle here. As soon as I take that bolt out, then on the top here, you've got 3 12 millimeter bolts here. Undo those, the whole strut will drop right out. Right now we've got the strut removed, and it's pretty straightforward here. So what we got is a spacer. This is where we get the lift from, 2-inch spacer. And then we've got these, which these are splined right at the top here, and they replace these because these are not long enough with the spacer on top. So spacer goes on like that, and we got no stud sticking out the top, so that's why we have longer ones. Now to get these out, you could press them. This is a bearing, so you do want to be a little bit careful with it, but what you most likely can do is take a hammer and just smack it right on the top there, and they should just pop out without too much trouble. But if it's not coming, maybe get a press there and try to press them out so you don't damage the bearing. Alright, so my studs are being kind of stubborn and I don't want to wreck the bearing. So what I've done here is I've opened the vise just enough that the stud fits in there. So I've got it over top there, just hanging like that. And now I'll try to do this with one hand here. Fairly good hit right there. Alright, that hit knocked it out of the vise, but it also knocked it just about right out the stud. It's basically just ready to come right out here. It'll only take one more little hit. Alright, now we're ready to install the new studs. So we got them right here, and we're going to use the old nuts. They're 12 millimeter. Now this is how we're going to install them. As if you can see there are splines, and these are a bit of a press fit in there, but they're not super difficult, and I can feel it already. It's riding on the splines right there. So if you just took the nut here, you wouldn't be able to get it down far enough to tighten it. So what we're going to do is make up that space with this socket. We're going to use this, what is it, a 5/8 socket. Slides over here on backwards. Get right there. Then you're going to thread the nut on here. Get that on there. And then I am essentially just going to tighten the nut down until it hits on the socket and pulls the splines up into place. Then I'll undo the nut, pull the socket off, and do the next one. Alright, so the usual socket method actually didn't work very well with these, which is surprising, but there's enough room right here that you hold the strut steady and you hit it with a ball peen hammer while just holding on to the end here to make sure it doesn't wiggle around, and they actually go on fairly easy that way. Alright, so we finished with the front. Now we're moved on to the rear. Already removed the rear wheels and jacked up the whole rear end. The first thing that I like to do is remove the rear seat. So the rear seat comes out, the bottom comes out first, then the back. The bottom has, on the bottom here, there are 2 12 millimeter bolts that fasten right in here on both sides. Then the top part has 1, 2, 3, 4 12mm bolts that hold the bottom of it in. Then you pull the center section of the seat out, the cup holder piece, as well as there's a second part that latches right here. Then the seat lifts straight up, and you pull the seat belts to the side, and the whole piece comes out. Now once the seat is removed, up top here on both sides you will have 3 12mm nuts to undo. This cap will come off. You can just leave it in place actually. The studs will drop through the bottom with the strut. A quick tip, if your bolts in the bottom are rusty and perhaps they break when you take them off, if they look like they're corroded, then you might have trouble with them. Go to the dealership and just order brand new ones. So holding the strut on down below here, you will have 2 bolts in the bottom with nuts on the other sides. The size is 3/4 inch. And they may be trouble to come out. These ones have already been out because, as you can see, the strut was replaced already, so they're not bad. Then around the back side here, you follow the brake line. You will have a clip right here, and I find these clips are easiest to pull out with you grab the top tab there with some channel locks, and then just wiggle it back and forth and pull it up. If it's giving you trouble, you may need to take a small chisel and tap from the bottom. It has little areas where you can tap it. It might be locked in there with a bit of rust, but it should come out, and then the brake line will just lift up and pop out of place. Alright, so I've got the rear strut out on the one side here, and now the rear struts are a little bit more involved. You will need to compress the spring and take the top hat off. There's a nut right inside here. I don't remember exactly what size it is. I will let you know though soon. So anyways, compress the spring, take the top hat off, then the studs will hammer out and you will put the new studs in. I forgot to mention with the front that when you are putting the spacer on with the longer studs, you're going to have more trouble getting it back into where it was supposed to be in here. And one thing that you can do is try to hold down on here with your foot to try to push it down. But what I found was easier is if you take a bottle jack and on the inside of the wheel well here, put a piece of wood so it spreads out the weight of that and it will not disrupt anything. And then it's pretty easy just to pump it down a little bit, holds it down, and then you can put your strut back in there. And once it's all buttoned up, just release that and pull the ball jack out and finish tightening everything up. It's pretty easy that way. But if you don't do that, you're probably going to be fighting with it quite a bit. There, the lift kit is fully installed. The wheels are torqued again and it's sitting higher. It's nicely leveled from front and rear, so you can see both the distances are very good right there. It's very noticeable. The only thing I might add is if you're the bolts that you get, the extended bolts, if you have trouble with the splines, I would suggest tack welding them to the back side of the plates. That would be the easier way to go about it if you're having trouble. Otherwise, don't do that. I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.